Hey everyone, this is D, Movieman, fellow cinephile, popcorn addict, and emerging film critic, coming to you with reliable recaps, reviews, and reactions. So today I am coming to you guys with the review for Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, directed by George C. Wolfe and starring Viola Davis and Chadwick Boseman. So I actually did a trailer reaction video for this film before it was released, and there I went a little more in depth as far as George C. Wolfe and Santiago-Hudson, who are the directors and screenwriters of this project, and how significant it was for them to come together and collaborate and adapt August Wilson's play as huge veterans of the stage themselves. I also gave some background as far as Ma Rainey, my understanding of her, and what an important musical figure she was. So feel free to check that out. Something I also mentioned in that video is the fact that Denzel Washington currently has a deal to produce 10 of August Wilson's plays. That also includes 2013's Fences and now Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. And of course, Netflix will be distributing the remaining 8 projects. So Ma Rainey's Black Bottom is an adaptation of the 1982 play by August Wilson, and that play tells the story of Ma Rainey and her band's experience in a recording studio in 1927 Chicago, and how that experience is impactful for all of them. And the entire play really explores themes of artistic control, commercial exploitation, and systematic racism, among other things. So I will start with the pros. First and foremost, although Ma Rainey's Black Bottom seems like somewhat of a simpler story, I do appreciate the themes and the deeper meanings there, and how deeply those themes resonate and really leap off the page and off screen, because they're really shedding light on certain topics. It's not always easy to see because it's usually hidden beneath the surface, but once you do, it really hits home, because we can see all these decades later, a lot of the things that are brought to light in this film really have not changed in the present day, to be honest. As always, I love a good period piece. I love how the look and feel of 1927 was brought to life, from the tent concerts down in Georgia all the way to the sophisticated theaters in Chicago, and a lot of the costumes and the production design is something that was really well done. And I really love how this era in time was showcased in the film. I really did appreciate Viola Davis's take on Ma Rainey, even though I thought I was going to get just a little bit more of her than I actually got. However, I did appreciate the presence she brought in her scenes and her performance. I do know that Ma Rainey's Black Bottom is more of an ensemble piece, so I knew it wasn't going to be necessarily about her, but I kind of expected there would be a little bit more. But like I said, while she was there, she definitely made an impact. And I haven't read through the entire play, so I'm not sure if this is proportionate to the time she has in the original play or not. However, I will say that with her time, she definitely made the most of it. There's a really great scene where Ma Rainey is being open and honest and recognizing that her voice and her ability to make money for these white people in power is all they care about. And so a lot of the perception of her being difficult is her really being aware of her value and her authority and her power and her voice and the kind of value and attention that demands. And her recognizing that there's no acknowledgement of her humanity or her contributions, really. None of that matters to them. And her knowing that, look, once you get what you want, it's curtains. And you will go back to your corners over there, and I will go back to my corners over here, and you won't care any more or any less about me. So while I am here, I will demand everything that I want, and you will give it to me because I deserve it. I don't need you. You need me. So I loved that, because it's awesome to think that in such a not so ideal time that Ma Rainey was really standing up and speaking out and really asserting herself as far as her value and her voice and her importance. And we've seen throughout history that the Black community can provide a certain value to others, but once that value is diminished, you're out of here. And she recognizes that, and she knows how to navigate that. And so I really appreciated that whole moment there. To be honest, there is not a whole lot I can say about Chadwick Boseman's performance, because it really speaks for itself. If you know Chadwick Boseman, then you know what to expect from this. And I do understand that the experience is soured because of the circumstances. The fact that he was overtaxed mentally, emotionally, physically, and was really channeling that pain into this performance. It's compelling, it's powerful, but it's also painful. So I can understand that watching, is such a conflicting experience, but the performance is everything that I would expect from Chadwick. Because, as I said before, Chadwick Boseman's best was always at the center of everything he did, not just as an actor, but as a person and the way he treated people. And that is something that stands out because you don't get that with everyone. And I think if anyone decides to watch this, this would be the big showstopper. This would be the big reason, not to minimize any other aspects, but he really is the heart of the film. And even the way that the story is constructed, he is kind of at the forefront of it. His performance is giving voice to so much loss, so much grief, so much resentment, so much internalized anger and rage, so much disappointment and confusion. And it resonates because it's real. And there are hundreds, thousands of levees across history who have walked around with the reality of being Black in America and what an ugly thing that has been as far as how we have been treated and marginalized and subjected to the most inhumane treatment. And what does that do to a person when there's no outlet? What does that do when you have to bury these things deep down and a pair of shoes is the one thing you can kind of find joy in? There was a lot there that really hit home for me, of course, as a young Black man, but also as a human. Understanding that the things we carry through life can really weigh us down. And it can take us down roads and paths that we never expected to go. And when there's no outlet for those things, it suddenly becomes misdirected. And who bears the brunt of that? The people around you, the people in your own community. And we just continue this vicious cycle of pain giving birth to greater pain and trying to push past that to find hope, to find success, to find happiness, but then bursting through these doors. And on the other side, there's only more disappointment and pain. So once I realized that, I was like, whoa, this is a really significant message we're sending here. And I appreciated that was an undercurrent of this story. I totally understood and related to that, and it's no surprise to me that this would be an Oscar-worthy performance because Chadwick was just that type of actor. And it's unfortunate that so much of his inspiration and his performance came from pain, but it kind of was a ironic parallel because Levy's own pain was something that he struggled to express and didn't know how to fully acknowledge. And the saddest part about Levy is rather than continue to push through and push forward to get to the place that he wanted to be, regardless of it being challenging, he becomes a victim of his own suffering. And he inflicts that suffering on other people. That's so many people's story. And I like that this film shed light on that. I also want to shout out the band members, including Glynn Turman. Glynn Turman is the man from Cooley High, Colonel Taylour in a Different World, From The Wire, How to Get Away with Murder, Fargo, and so much more. He really is a veteran actor. And I was so excited to see him in this, and I really enjoyed his character and his performance a lot. Colman Domingo is an actor I was not familiar with until The Butler, but I really do enjoy him as an actor, and I've enjoyed seeing where his career has gone, all his different roles and projects that he's been a part of. And I really like his swagger. I don't know, he really has an old school swagger that works for these period pieces and these projects that take place in the past because he fits so well within these stories. Whether it's The Butler or Selma or Birth of a Nation or A Bill Street Could Talk, he just brings a little extra something to those roles. You really could believe that he was from that time. He does that really well. I'm actually new to Michael Potts, but I did see that he's done some really great work in The Wire and True Detective, and I really enjoyed him here as well. Whew, as difficult as it was to watch, I did appreciate the new addition that they made at the end of the film to supplement the original play material, because that scene really emphasized just how much success and wealth have been made off of the genius and the talents and the gifts of the Black community. That's the reality. So I'm glad that we're willing to highlight that, as difficult as it was to see. So let me jump over to the cons, because I had a few. So the runtime of this film is an hour and a half, which is a lot shorter than I thought it was going to be. When I looked at the runtime for the original play, it said it was a little over 2 hours, and I'm not sure what got cut. I haven't read the original play, but I think this could have been a little bit longer because I think the way it was done, it felt abrupt. It felt kind of rushed. And like I said, I would have to see the original play because maybe it moves differently. So I think in this it felt kind of tight and it kind of resolved itself before I had time to fully immerse myself in it, if that makes sense. I also would have appreciated just a little bit more Ma. Like I said, I don't know if there's more of her in the original play versus what we saw here, but I would have liked to have seen more from her just as far as her presence in the story, even though it's not just about her. I went in knowing that this wasn't a biopic. I think some people assumed it was going to literally be about her or aspects of her life, and that's never what it was. But I would like to have just seen more of her from a vocal perspective. I think it was more limited. And I appreciated that, but I also just wanted more at the same time. I will say the trailer probably is a little misleading for some people because it shows her performing on the stage and in these places. So it probably allowed people to think, oh, we're gonna, see a little bit more outside of just the recording studio. But that was really more so of an intro. So ooh, I have to say that the lip syncing, unfortunately, was not well done at all. It didn't feel immersive, which is unfortunate because that's an important part of her, even if it's just for a brief moment. I feel like that aspect of her wasn't really brought to life, which is not good because that's a significant part of her as a performer, as a musician, as a singer. So I really felt like they dropped the ball on that. I wish we could have gotten more, stank, a little more. I don't know, a little more something as far as the mouth movements and the, just fitting in with the sound and with her music. I kind of was on the fence as far as the look of Ma Rainey. I understood that they were maybe trying to do something more realistic because obviously Viola Davis and Ma Rainey don't necessarily look alike. But I think between kind of the makeup and kind of the sweaty look they did and the body prosthetic, because Viola Davis gained weight, but obviously they had to add on weight because, it wouldn't have made sense for her just to gain all that weight just because. But there were times where it was just kind of distracting, where it just looked kind of weird because that, her entire weight is not proportionate to this here. So that was a little awkward. And there were times where I wanted more from her voice. I wanted to be a little huskier, have a little more something. I think there were times I felt like I could hear Annalise Keating, even though this was supposed to be Ma Rainey. Even though the performance resonated, I think there were things that kind of were distracting when I was watching and listening. And it doesn't change the fact that Viola Davis is definitely a great actress, but I almost feel like for this role we could have had an actual full-figured woman because I feel like all the extras that we added to Viola Davis kind of detracted a little bit from the performance, and it didn't really enhance it the way I feel like it should have. So overall, I'd have to give Ma Rainey's Black Bottom a B-. This film is not easy entertainment. It's not a feel-good story. And even in the sense of a mainstream film, it's not that either. It's really trying to bring something from the stage to people who otherwise wouldn't have an opportunity to see it. I think it's one of those films you appreciate for the messaging and the performances and the style and those things, but it's not necessarily a movie you're going to walk out of being like, oh, that was good, I enjoyed that, I had a good time. Like in a mainstream film or a commercial film, this is not that. I definitely think there could have been a little bit more done to elevate it beyond the stage, but I also respect George C. Wolfe's vision and the vision of August Wilson. So the fact that it's even something we can look at and watch and appreciate is great. And I'm just glad that his works are being exposed to a mainstream audience. There are a lot of people who probably still don't know who August Wilson is, and I think from here we have a lot of people who will be looking up his work or do adaptations of his plays and really learn more about him. And I think that's so important. And I'm glad it's being exposed to an audience that otherwise might not be familiar with him. And I'm really excited to see what these remaining 8 projects are going to look like. And I'm just ready to see more regarding the Black experience throughout time and what his commentary on that is going to be. Ma Rainey's Black Bottom is currently streaming on Netflix, and you guys can check it out and let me know what you think. So, once again, this is D, Movie Man, signing off, and I'll see you at the movies.